Chapter 1044. What are you talking about? Is this the attitude that a student should have towards a mentor? You are getting more and more presumptuous. The Luo clan's patriarch shouted in a deep voice, his face sunk as he stared at the angry Luo Fei. Father, you don't know, we have been looking for him outside for more than an hour. Who would have thought that he would actually come to our house? Luo Fei angrily said, staring fiercely at Fingzhou. Even the pureness that he pretended to put on was thrown aside. Duan Yi, Ning Lang and Song Ming stepped forward and cupped their hands in salute. Greetings Patriarch Luo, Madam Luo. At this time, the Luo couple's gaze fell on the three people. After seeing Duan Yi and the other two, they secretly nodded and said with a smile, sit down and rest. The three people complied and sat down. After sitting down, the three people's 6 eyes fell on Fingzhou, who was sitting opposite them and playing with the cloud-swallowing fur. After not being able to find him, they thought that he might have come to the Luo clan. However, the three people guessed this point, but did not remind Luo Fei. Instead, they found a place to sit down and drink a cup of tea, watching Luo Fei search the city for more than an hour before finally returning to the Luo clan with him. With Fingzhou's personality, how could he be at a disadvantage? This Luo Fei wanted to mess with him, but in the end, he only messed with himself. What are the three of you called? Are you all students of a 2-star academy? Madame Luo asked with a smile, her gentle eyes falling on the three people. We are the same as Luo Fei, because we do not like to stay in the academy, we have been helping at home. Ning Lang said until here. When his foot was stepped on, he took a deep breath. Seeing Song Ming frown at him, he reacted and looked at the two people in the main seat with an embarrassed smile. Ha ha ha, in fact, it is very good at home. My parents love me at home, right? My father is Ning Yuan, he is the richest man in the Tsang country. My name is Ning Lang. Oh, so it is City Lord Ning's son. Luo clan's patriarch nodded, with appreciation in his eyes. I heard that young Master Ning has been helping City Lord Ning to make money since he was young. He is a natural-born money-maker. Today, seeing young Master Ning's fortune and wealth, this Luo really envious of City Lord Ning for having such a son. Ning Lang was a little embarrassed by his compliment, and a touch of uneasiness appeared on his pleasant face. He scratched his head and said with a silly smile, Master Luo, you flatter me. I am Song Ming, and this is Duan Yi. We are both students of the 2-star academy, and this time we are following our mentor to gain experience. Song Ming smiled as he introduced. Looking at the furious and sullen Luo Fei, he said with a smile, the few of us have already walked all the way here. Only Luo Fei is missing. Hearing this, Luo clan's patriarch smiled, with you accompanying, and Teacher Feng leading the team, we are very relieved to let this kid go with you. But this kid is also a troublesome person, I am afraid that he will cause trouble for Teacher Feng. While speaking, he looked at Fingzhou. Fingzhou chuckled and said, Patriarch Luo can rest assured, I specialize in dealing with these troublesome students. Ha ha ha, good, then I will trouble Teacher Feng with my son. I also asked Teacher Feng to take care of him. Chapter 1045. Luo Fei swept a glance at Fingzhou, snorted, turned his head and said, I don't intend to go with them to gain experience. Besides, if he says he is a mentor, then why is he a mentor? As his voice fell, his eyes flashed, he turned his head to look at Fingzhou, and then said to his father and mother, Father, Mother, you don't know. This Fingzhou is not a mentor hired by the academy. He slightly raised his chin, and looked at Fingzhou provocatively. He felt that he had seen through his mask, and continued, he was originally a student of a 6-star academy, and had come to participate in the academy's ranking, but he was lucky enough to advance to the Golden Core stage in the Holy Land, so he was deprived of the qualifications to participate. The dean of the academy made an exception to let a student of a 6-star academy become a mentor, but for him, the students of a 2-star academy are not convinced. They were students of a 2-star academy, which one of them was the most beautiful person in their family, especially the 4 of them. Even the mentors of the academy had to give them face, and did not dare to offend them easily. Even if they did not go to the academy, the mentors would not dare to say anything to them. However, this kid who was suddenly promoted from a 6-star academy, actually said that he was the mentor of the 4 of them. This was really a joke. How could they agree? Fine. Even if Duan Yi, Ning Lang and Song Ming agreed, he would absolutely not agree. His brain was much smarter than the 3 of them, and would not be easily fooled. Hearing these words, the Luo clan's head's face darkened. He stared at his son, and immediately slammed his hand on the table, making a loud sound, and at the same time shouted, "Young Master Feng has already told us about this matter, so what if he is from a 6-star academy? Do you have the strength of a golden core stage like him? Or are you smarter than him? If you don't know anything, then don't talk nonsense, you really don't know any rules." Luo Fei's mouth moved, his face was stunned. He did not expect that his father would suddenly reprimand him. This made him startled, and at the same time angry. He wanted to say something, but seeing his mother shaking her head at him, he had no choice but to endure. "Ha ha ha, young Master Feng, my son has been spoiled. If he is rude, I hope you don't take offense." Saying that, he stood up, and said with a smile, "Young Master Feng, everyone, please come to the backyard for dinner. Knowing that you are coming, my wife ordered people to prepare a banquet to entertain you. In the future, my son, I will have to trouble you to take care of him." The others also stood up and responded with a smile. Only then did they walk out together with the husband and wife. Even if he did not want to cause trouble, he would not dare to cause any trouble, so he also followed behind them. When he arrived there, he rolled his eyes and personally went to the wine cellar to get a jar of wine. When he arrived at the banquet, everyone was already seated and chatting. The wine had already been poured, so he put the wine to the side. During the banquet, everyone was talking and laughing, and the wine was unceasingly poured, until, as the night deepened, he came forward with the wine jug and personally poured wine for Fengzhou and the others, while saying, "Mentor Feng, I have offended you before, I apologize to you here, please drink 3 cups with me." Fengzhou looked at him standing in front of him with the wine jug, and said with a smile, "How can a small wine cup be enough? How about this? Let's drink 3 bowls with a bowl." Chapter 1046. Wine bowls were wide mouths and thick bottoms. They were used for drinking wine. However, wine bowls were rarely used. Now that he shouted, the servant girl hurriedly brought 2 wine bowls over and placed them in front of the 2 of them. Luo Fei put down the wine jug and walked to the table to pour wine for the 2. "Please." He put down the wine jug and raised the wine bowl. Fengzhou raised the wine bowl and toasted him, then downed the wine in the bowl. When the wine entered her mouth, her eyes flashed and a faint smile appeared on her lips. Again. He was overjoyed and shouted. He poured another bowl and continued to drink. The bystanders saw the 2 of them drinking continuously and downing it in one gulp. They could not help but look at each other. Madame Luo was a little worried. Drinking like this is too harmful to the body. "It's fine, I don't drink like this often." Luo Fei waved his hand. After 2 bowls of wine, he was already a little tipsy. However, he still poured a 3rd bowl of wine. "Instructor Feng, this bowl is for you. In the future, if I do anything wrong, please forgive me." Fengzhou curled his lips. "No problem." He then drank the 3rd bowl. Duan Yi and the other 2 looked at each other. They felt that Luo Fei would not submit to him just like that. There was probably something fishy going on in these 3 bowls of wine. However, even so, the 3 of them did not intend to interfere. As the saying goes, evil people will be dealt with by evil people. All right. Although it was not good to use this saying to describe the two of them, Luo Fei, the little fox, could only admit defeat when he met the two-faced Fingzhou. If he did not submit, Fingzhou had his ways to tame him. As he said earlier, he was a troublemaker. After the banquet, everyone was drunk and ended. Under Madame Luo's orders, everyone was helped back to their rooms to rest. Patriarch Luo and Madame Luo truly enjoyed this banquet. As for Duan Yi, Ning Lang, and Song Ming, they had accompanied Fingzhou here to watch the show. Therefore, it would be better to say that they were pretending to be drunk. Luo Fei, on the other hand, had planned to get Fingzhou drunk. However, he did not expect that he would end up getting himself drunk. Fingzhou saw that he wanted to get her drunk, so she did as he wished. She drank cup after cup of wine. In the end, her eyes became a little blurry, and her face became a little blushed. Her footsteps were also a little light, and she staggered back with the help of the maidservants. However, with the end of the banquet, everyone returned to their rooms. On the other side, Luo Fei, who had returned to his residence, drank the hangover soup brought by the attendant and gradually sobered up. "Young master." The attendant looked at him and smiled. "How long have I been back?" He rubbed his forehead. It hurt a little. "Young master instructed me to prepare a hangover soup and wait for him." Therefore, from the moment he returned to the moment he drank the hangover soup to the moment he woke up, less than an hour had passed. He replied and stood up with the help of the attendant. When he walked outside, he called out and two cultivators appeared in front of him. "Young master." The two of them bowed respectfully. "Go, put a gunny sack on the brat in the guest room and throw him into the brothel. Tell them to take good care of him." He revealed a malicious smile and laughed softly. He thought, if he woke up drunk tomorrow and found out that he was in the brothel, how interesting would his face be. Chapter 1047. Just as the two cultivators responded and left, Luo Fei waved his hand. "You can leave now. Don't disturb me, I want to sleep. I'll sleep until tomorrow morning before going to watch the show." As he spoke, he turned around and entered his room. Just as he was about to close the door, he seemed to have thought of something and turned back with a chuckle. "If I still haven't woken up tomorrow, and they're still looking for that red-robed brat, you can tell them that he felt lonely last night and said he wanted to take a walk around the brothel. Do you understand?" The attendant replied with a grin, "Don't worry, young master. I understand." Only then did Luo Fei enter his room in satisfaction. He hummed a little tune as he walked towards his bed. However, before he could lie down on the bed, his vision turned black and he fell unconscious. A red figure caught him and brought him out in a flash. Returning to his own room, in the guest room, the red-robed Fingzhou's body swayed slightly. He poured himself a cup of water and drank it. After closing the window, he blew out the lights in the room and staggered towards his bed. The two cultivators who had been watching outside for a while looked at each other. After confirming that they didn't get the wrong person, they waited until the room was completely silent before quietly entering the room. They felt their way in and entered the room in the dark. One of them lifted the blanket while the other directly threw a sack over the person on the bed. They were afraid that the noise would alarm the others and even chopped at the back of the person's neck, knocking him unconscious before carrying him away. The two cultivators didn't see that after they quietly left the room, a figure walked out from a dark corner of the room and stared at the person being carried away by the sack with a faint smile. Fingzhou yawned and rubbed his neck before lying down on the bed. Now, he could finally have a comfortable sleep. As for what would happen to Luo Fei who was carried away tonight? She wouldn't care. Duan Yi, Ning Lang, and Song Ming knew that tonight would not be a peaceful night. Therefore, they pretended to be drunk and waited to see what would happen tonight. They were originally staying in the same courtyard as Fingzhou, only in different rooms. Thus, they blew out the lights and gathered in the same room. In the pitch-black room, they watched as the two cultivators groped their way into Fingzhou's room. Not long after, they saw them come out with a sack. The three of them couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. "You put him in a sack and carried him away?" Ning Lang asked in astonishment. Song Ming rubbed his chin. "Fingzhou shouldn't have fallen for it so easily. If even we can see it, there's no way he can't see it." "Yes. Also, did you notice? I haven't seen that cloud-devouring beast since it came back. I don't know where it went." "Yes, this feeling is just like..." Ning Lang thought for a moment and scratched his head. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh. "Right. Just like last time, he dug a hole for me to jump into." Hearing this, Duan glanced at him. "That's because you dug a hole for yourself. When did he dig a hole for you? Also, with your brain, there's really no need for him to dig a hole for you." Hearing this, Ning Lang was unhappy. "What do you mean with my brain?" "My brain is a business brain that makes money. You can't have it even if you want it." Seeing that the two of them were quarreling, Song Ming rubbed his forehead helplessly and said, "All right, why are you two quarreling? This matter has nothing to do with you. Anyway, tell me, is the person being carried away Fingzhou?" Chapter 1048. After a moment of silence, Ning Lang said, "I don't think it's him. Fingzhou is a black-bellied person. He's good at scheming against people. How could he be so easily tricked? Don't you think so? If it's not him, then who could it be? Although that person was in a gunny sack, we could still tell that it was a person and not something else." As Song Ming spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and shock appeared on his face. Just as he was about to speak, Duan Yi beside him spoke first. "If that person isn't Fingzhou, then it's Luo Fei." As soon as these words were spoken, the three people couldn't help but gasp and widen their eyes. Heavens! It can't really be Luo Fei, right? For a moment, the three people's 9 eyes widened in the pitch-black room, their faces full of disbelief. If this person was Luo Fei, then how did Fingzhou know that Luo Fei would send someone to carry him away? Could it be that he went to Luo Fei's room after returning to his room? Heard Luo Fei's words. Then knocked Luo Fei unconscious and brought him back, directly switching the dragon into the phoenix. But, was that possible? Even if Fingzhou's cultivation was at the golden core stage, there were no lack of powerful people in the Luo residence. They could believe that he could come and go as he pleased in here. After all, his movement technique was very strange and miraculous. But if he was carrying someone and had to avoid the sight of the hidden guards in the residence, then it wasn't simple. Furthermore, thinking that Luo Fei might really have been switched by Fingzhou, the three people's expressions couldn't help but become strange. "Say, where do you think they took him away to?" Ning Lang asked curiously, a hint of excitement appearing in his eyes. Could he have been taken away to be sold? Duan Yi looked at the two of them and said, "They haven't gone far yet. Why don't we follow them and take a look?" As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Lang and Song Ming's eyes lit up and they immediately agreed. "All right, let's go and take a look." "Let's go." Thus, the three of them quietly left the room and followed the three people. At this moment, the two cultivators who carried the gunny sack out of Luo Yi still didn't know that they had mistaken the person, or rather, they didn't know that the person they were carrying had long been replaced by their young master. "Where are they going? It's so late at night, and you're still taking the small path." Behind them, the three of them followed from a distance to avoid being discovered. They watched as the two men carried the sacks and walked until they reached a certain place. When they entered, the three of them stuck close to the wall and saw the words written there. They couldn't help but open their mouths and stare dumbfoundedly. It can't be. Is this delivered to the cafe? The three looked at each other with strange expressions. It must be Luo Fei. Shall we go in and take a look? Duan Yi looked at the two of them and asked. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, the three of them walked forward together and quietly entered the room. They just happened to see that the two cultivators had already turned around and left. Thus, they went to the window of the room and peeked inside through the slit of the window. Inside, a madam in her 30s gestured. Open the sack. I want to see how the free goods look like. Yes. The two burly men answered and opened the sack, revealing the unconscious youth inside. When the three of them outside the window saw the unconscious person, they really felt a sense of schadenfreude in their hearts. Even though they had long guessed that the person in the sack was Luo Fei, when they saw that he wanted to prank Fingzhou but ended up being pranked by that black-bellied person instead, they really sympathized with him. Chapter 1049. After watching for a while, the three of them left quietly. Luo Fei had schemed against Fingzhou, so they didn't dare to stand up for him. Otherwise, they might be implicated. On the way back, Ning Lang looked at the moon and sighed. I suddenly feel that Fingzhou is really good to me. At least, he was only threatened to be sold to the brothel, but he wasn't actually sold to the brothel. Duan Yi agreed. Compared to you guys, he's the best to me because I'm willing to go with him. I don't have as many twists and turns as you guys. He also realized that if he was obedient, he wouldn't be punished. If he was too rebellious, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, Fingzhou wouldn't give you any face when he did things that others didn't dare to do. Others might be apprehensive of their status, but Fingzhou wouldn't. He had seen this clearly during their journey. The three of them chatted as they walked. When they returned to the courtyard, they glanced at the tightly shut door and the pet guarding outside. They couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. They were sure that Fingzhou was sleeping inside. He was the only one who could sleep so comfortably after tricking others. The three of them laughed in their hearts and returned to their rooms. They planned to see what would happen the next morning. However, to their surprise, when they washed up and went out the next morning, they saw Fingzhou sitting in the courtyard eating breakfast. He said to them, "Say goodbye to Master Luo and the rest after breakfast." Leaving? So soon? The three of them looked at him in surprise. Actually, they wanted to ask, Luo Fei isn't back yet. Is he really leaving? What? Are you guys addicted to staying here? He glanced at them with a half-smile. Haha, of course not. The three of them laughed awkwardly and hurriedly sat down to eat. Then, they followed him to the front yard to say goodbye to Master and Master Luo. Leaving? You just came yesterday and you're leaving today. Won't you stay for a few more days? Master Luo was stunned when he heard their words. Seeing this, Madame Luo looked at them and said, "It's rare for friends to come to the house, you guys should stay for a few more days. Fei hasn't brought you around the city yet. If you leave like this, we'll feel a little embarrassed. We feel like we can't greet you. No, it's just that we can't stay here for long." Fingzhou said with a smile, "It's been a while since I've been out. Today, I'm here to bid you all farewell. I'll be taking Luo Fei with me. Fei also wants to go with you. He's willing to go with you." Madame Luo was surprised. Hearing this, Duan Yi and the others smiled and didn't say anything. Fingzhou chuckled and looked at the three people beside him. He said, the three of them were unwilling at first. What he meant was that even if she was unwilling now, she would eventually become obedient as time went by. Seeing this, the Luo clan couple was stunned, and then they looked at each other and said with a smile, "That's fine, then let him go with you." If he can be your companion, we can rest assured. This kid, why hasn't he woken up yet? Master Luo saw that it was getting late, but he didn't see his son, so he called out, "Housekeeper, call the young master over." Chapter 1050. Hearing this, the Luo couple felt strange but did not ask further. They knew that Fingzhou and the rest would not harm their son. Thus, Madame Luo smiled and nodded, "Then I'll prepare some dry rations and fruits for you to eat on the way." Fingzhou and the rest did not refuse this and chatted with Patriarch Luo as they waited. After an hour, they left the Luo residence under the Luo couple's escort. After they left, Patriarch Luo called for Luo Fei's servant and asked about the situation. After hearing what had happened, both of them were stunned, especially Patriarch Luo, who laughed out of anger. That brat. He's always thinking of such evil ideas. Great, now that he's fallen into young Master Feng's hands, let's see how he can still be so arrogant. Only people like him can temper his spirit. No, this won't be. Madame Luo was worried. Why was he sent to such a place? Fei really shouldn't have done this. Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Since young Master Feng is a teacher, he will know his limits. He told me that Fei will be back in a year. Alright, let's go back. As he spoke, he brought her inside. At the same time, on the other side, Luo Fei, who had woken up in the middle of the night, screamed when he saw the transparent gauze on his body and the large underpants on his body. However, when he opened his mouth to scream, he realized that he could not make a sound. Furthermore, his strength had been sealed. No one tied him up and he was locked in a room with guards all around him. When he tried to escape, he was caught and brought back. In the end, when he finally found out where he was, his expression turned ugly. Small brothel. How could it be a small brothel? He clearly asked the guards to bring Fingzhou here. How did he end up here? Furthermore, why couldn't he make a sound? Furthermore, his strength and cultivation had been sealed. Were they trying to make him lose his virginity? Thinking about this place, and then thinking about how he was locked up in here with only his underwear, and could be arranged to meet guests at any time, goosebumps couldn't help but rise up at the thought of that scene. It was too disgusting. How could he be the one facing such a situation? Damned Fingzhou. He must have played some dirty trick, but now, how was he going to escape? Tell them that he was the young master of the Luo family. Who would believe that? Master Huang is here to see the new goods. Go, bring the youth out and let Master Huang take a look. Hearing the voice from outside, Luo Fei's face pale and he quickly retreated to find a place to escape. However, the doors and windows were all sealed. If he had his strength, it would be fine, but now that his strength and cultivation had been sealed, he was like a powerless commoner, there was no way to escape. It's over, I'm lose. Damned Fingzhou. If I lose my virginity, I'll never. As the door opened and two big men walked in. Let's go, there are guests in front. When Luo Fei saw this, he immediately threw himself onto the bed and covered his head with the blanket, refusing to go out no matter what. Take one go. Go. Let me go. You dare make me meet guests. I'll skin you alive. Chapter 1051. When he was brought to the front of a fat middle-aged man, Luo Fei's head popped out from under the blanket. When he saw the middle-aged man, his eyes widened. He looks quite similar to that Luo family brat. As the middle-aged man spoke, he stepped forward to take a closer look at Luo Fei. When the procuress heard this, she covered her mouth and giggled. How could that be? He's just a little mute, he can't speak. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been sold here. Oh. A little mute. Ha ha ha, good, good, good. Just based on this face that is similar to the Luo family's boy, I will buy him today. Later, send him to my residence. Remember, it's still the same old rules. He instructed the procuress at the side. Don't worry, Master Huang. We know what to do. The procuress smiled and walked out with them, instructing them to bring Luo Fei back. Luo Fei struggled, but was wrapped up in a blanket and carried away. He knew that old bastard. Last month, he'd taught him a lesson. He didn't expect to meet that old thing here. When he thought of this place and their words, he began to panic. Without strength, without help, and without even being able to speak, he didn't know what to do. He'd originally thought that he'd take the opportunity to teach Fingzhou a lesson and make him retreat. He'd know that he, Luo Fei, wasn't easy to fool. Who knew that he'd end up in this situation? When he thought of Duan Yi and the other's strange expressions when he said he'd teach Fingzhou a lesson, he gritted his teeth. Those fellows already knew that Fingzhou wouldn't do anything, but they didn't warn me. They're too disloyal. But he didn't think that he'd underestimated Fingzhou. He'd assumed that someone from a 6th-class academy wouldn't be able to subdue him and didn't have any ability. That was why he'd ended up in this situation. In his panic, he'd been brought back. He'd been forced to take a bath and put on a new set of clothes. However, those clothes were even more embarrassing than being naked. His face had turned red and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He was determined to tear down this shabby tavern. On the other side, after leaving the Luo family, Duan Yi and the others suddenly realized that Tun Yun had not been seen since morning. Thus, they asked, Fingzhou, where's your little beast? Why isn't he with you? I told it to keep an eye on Luo Fei. She walked leisurely with a sly smile on her lips. I wonder how that brat is doing now. How curious. However, would anyone take a fancy to someone like him? Hearing this, the three of them looked at each other, and the corners of their mouths twitched. This Fingzhou has such a wicked taste. From the look on his face, it was as if he was hoping that someone would take a fancy to Luo Fei. They even had a feeling that even if there wasn't, he would add fuel to the fire from behind and turn it into something. Cough. Song Ming coughed lightly and said, Luo Fei grew up in this place. Everyone with some status in this area knows him. Perhaps someone has recognized his identity. Would someone with status go to a tavern? Fingzhou asked. His voice paused for a moment, and he said somewhat carelessly, moreover, I sealed his strength and cultivation, so he can't speak. Chapter 1052. When they arrived, they did not enter through the main door. Instead, they snuck in and found the cloud-swallowing beast lying on the roof. Naturally, they knew which room Luo Fei was in. When the cloud-swallowing beast saw Fingzhou, it stood up and wagged its tail at her like a puppy, expressing its joy. Seeing this, Fingzhou pulled the cloud into her arms. When the others lifted the roof tiles and saw Luo Fei tied up on the bed, they could not help but smile gloatingly. Under Fingzhou's signal, they knocked out the two guards and pushed open the door. Duan Yi and Ning Lang guarded the door while Fingzhou and Song Ming walked in. Luo Fei, why are you here? I've been looking for you for a long time. As Fingzhou spoke, she looked as if she had been looking for him for a long time. I didn't see you when I woke up this morning. I thought you were hiding to avoid me and didn't want to leave with us. However, looking at you, it seems that I was overthinking things. As she said this, the smile on her lips widened uncontrollably. She looked at the young man who was tied up like a dumpling with a red face, glaring at her with shame and indignation. She smiled happily, her gaze sizing him up. With a face full of curiosity, she asked, That's right, why are you dressed like this? This gauze is so thin, it's like you're not wearing anything. Can you go out like this? You don't seem to be able to speak. Or are you embarrassed to say it? She smiled and narrowed her eyes. You don't have to be like this. I'm your teacher after all. If you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to be embarrassed. The corner of Song Ming's mouth twitched and he looked away. He felt that Luo Fei was too pitiful. He was tied up and thrown on the bed, and he was even wearing such a strange gauze. It was simply impossible to look at him directly. It was too damaging to his image. That's right, we're leaving. Do you want to come with us? She asked with a smile. When she saw that he could not speak, she patted her head and said, I remember now. It's okay if you can't speak. If you want to come with me, you can nod. If you don't want to, just shake your head. Your head can still move, right? You can still move your head. Hearing this, Luo Fei felt terrible. What did he mean by his head could still move? What would happen if he couldn't move? Also, he didn't believe that Fengzhou didn't know how he ended up like this. After thinking about it, other than him, no one else would do this to him. Now, he even wanted to threaten him and force him to leave with him. This Fengzhou was too evil. How is it? Do you need to think about it? If you need it, I can give you some time. The implication was that if he did not agree to go with them, then they would have to leave. As for what would happen in the end, it was none of their business. Luo Fei gritted his teeth. Unable to speak, he was really afraid. He hurriedly nodded, afraid that they would really leave. If he stayed here, it would be really troublesome. Follow me. Fengzhou raised his eyebrows, but he was not surprised. After seeing him nod again, Fengzhou revealed a satisfied smile and motioned to Song Ming beside him. Bring him along. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, the dazzling red figure had already walked out. Chapter 1053. The few of them followed Fengzhou out of the city. When they saw a luxurious flying ship appear in front of them with a wave of his hand, they could not help but widen their eyes. Ning Lang's eyes especially brightened. He quickly ran forward and touched the luxurious flying ship, exclaiming in amazement. Oh my God! This flying ship is so beautiful. Even the one at home is not as luxurious as this. Fengzhou, where did you buy this flying ship? It's so beautiful. He cried out in surprise as he touched it. He could not see the interior of the ship, so he turned back to look at Fengzhou. Fengzhou, can we go up now? You're too mean. Why didn't you take out such a treasure earlier? She smiled. Let's go. Then, she walked forward with Tan Yun. The others quickly followed her into the flying ship. Only Luo Fei, who was being carried and unable to speak, glared and struggled to kick his legs. Was he going to take him away? He had only agreed to calm him down and think of a solution after leaving. He did not expect him to take him out of the city and even get such a flying ship. Was he not planning to let him go home? There were people who entered the city from outside. When they saw such a flying ship parked outside the city, they naturally discussed and exclaimed in amazement. They were all guessing which aristocratic family this person belonged to. How could there be such a luxurious flying ship? Even some aristocratic families and forces in the city sent people to investigate after hearing the news. However, by the time they arrived, Fengzhou and the others had already left. In the Luo residence, Master Luo and Madame Luo were talking in the courtyard when they heard the luxurious flying ship outside the city. That was until the housekeeper ran in. Master, Madam, this is a letter from Madam's family. The housekeeper presented a letter before retreating. It must be a letter from your mother-in-law. Madam, take a look. Master Luo said with a smile and handed the letter to her. All right. Madame Luo accepted it with a smile. She opened the letter and saw that there was a folded portrait inside. She handed the portrait to her husband beside her and read the letter herself. "This is a letter from my father. He said that he sent us a portrait of the ghost doctor. He said that the patriarchs of the aristocratic families and forces all have one. A portrait of the ghost doctor." Master Luo was startled and quickly opened the portrait. He could not help but be startled. "Isn't this young Master Feng?" Madame Luo's head. It really is young Master Feng. How did he become the ghost doctor?" The husband and wife looked at each other, their hearts filled with astonishment. That reckless red-clothed youth was actually the ghost doctor? Of the ghost master. Could it be that this matter was really like what he had said at that time, that he was originally a 6-star student, and after coming to a 2-star academy because of a chance encounter, he was promoted to a 2-star instructor? Our Fei is truly blessed. Patriarch Luo laughed. "That's right." Madame Luo replied happily. "And Luo. Of us. How can you do this? You actually took me away like this. If your parents can't find me, they will be worried." Chapter 1054. How is that possible? My parents would never agree to it. When he said these words, he was somewhat lacking in confidence. His parents were very appreciative of this Feng Zhou, especially after knowing that he was an instructor of a 2-star academy. They were extremely relieved. It was really possible that what he had said was true, that his parents had agreed to forcibly take him away. How is it impossible? "Look, these pastries and fruits were prepared for us by your mother." Ning Lang ate the fruit and asked, "Do you want one?" Hearing this, Luo Fei glared at him. "Do you think I can eat it now?" When they heard this, they glanced at him and thought of his day and night's experience and couldn't help but grin. "Well, you shouldn't be able to eat it. I'm going to rest, don't disturb me if there's nothing." Fingzhou said, got up and walked to the room in the cabin. However, when she took a step, Luo Fei blocked her way. She raised her eyebrows, looked at the angry Luo Fei in front of her, and asked, "Do you still have something to say?" "I want to get off the ship. I want to go home." "Did you forget your answer and come with me?" She looked at him, her eyes flashing with an inexplicable light. Luo Fei's eyes flashed, and he argued, "I only promised to go out with you. I didn't say I would get on your pirate ship." She curled her lips. "Don't you know that it's easy to get on the ship, but hard to get off? Do you think I'll let you get off my pirate ship?" As soon as her voice fell, she stepped forward. Luo Fei wanted to say something more, but Ning Lang pressed on his shoulder and dragged him to the side. After Fengzhou went in, they sat around him. "Don't even think about it. Once you're on his ship, unless he allows you to get off, you can't get off." "That's right, and I don't think there's anything wrong with his ship. Do you know how many people want to get on this ship but don't have the chance?" Song Ming said, looking at him as if he didn't know what was good for him. "If you continue to struggle, you'll be the only one suffering." Duanyi said, glancing at him, "He has 100 ways to fix you and make you obedient. Do you believe it? Or do you want to taste them one by one before you believe me?" Listening to their words, he was reminded of what had happened before. Ever since he met Fengzhou, he had never been able to gain the upper hand. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and ask, "Then where are we going? You have to let me know, right?" Hearing this, the three of them looked at each other and smiled. The Hell Mountain Range. Luo Fei cried out involuntarily, what? Hell Mountain Range. Heavens! It can't be, right? That place is like hell. Once you enter, you won't be able to leave. Are you trying to send us to our deaths? The 1-year experience will be there. Moreover, Fengzhou will only take us for a year. Whether you like it or not, it's a year's time. After a year, even if we want to follow him, he won't agree. Song Ming said slowly. He knew in his heart that after a year, Fengzhou wouldn't take them with him. After all, with his reputation as the ghost doctor, there were too many people who wanted to follow him. It was estimated that this time, if he didn't feel that he was in the wrong for what he had done in the 2-star academy, perhaps he wouldn't have agreed to take them to the Hell Mountain Range. Chapter 1055. Hearing this, Luo Fei felt strange when he saw their expressions. Even if they were subdued by Fengzhou, they shouldn't be like this, right? Did they mean that they couldn't bear to part with him after a year? Although he was confused, he didn't ask further. Instead, he nudged Ning Lang with his elbow. Where are the pastries my mother prepared? Take them out for me to eat. Ning Lang grinned. Didn't you say you didn't want them? I thought you couldn't eat them. I haven't eaten anything since last night. If you give me a big meal, I can eat them all. Hurry up, stop dawdling, he said impatiently. Seeing this, Ning Lang took out 2 boxes of pastries and some fruits for him. Eat. They're from your family anyway. The few of them sat together and ate as they chatted. They told Luo Fei about how they were abducted by Fengzhou. Luo Fei felt good when he heard this. He thought to himself, so I'm not the only one like this. The few of us were taught a lesson too. Thinking of this, his originally sullen mood also eased up, and he chatted and laughed with the few of them along the way. The speed of the flying ship was extremely fast, but even so, it took them half a month to reach the forest outside the Hell Mountain Range. That evening, they alighted from the spaceship. After Fengzhou kept the spaceship, he didn't bring them into the forest. Instead, he said to the few of them, "We'll rest here tonight and discuss what to do after we enter the forest. You guys prepare a fire and hunt some game nearby to roast for dinner." Then, he instructed, "The 4 of you will split into 2 teams. 2 to a team. From now on, get used to working together. Then who will team up with whom? Do we do it ourselves?" Ning Lang asked. Hearing this, Fengzhou looked at the 4 of them and divided them. Duan Yi and Luo Fei will team up. You and Song Ming will team up. I'll be the leader of each team. Now, Duan Yi and Luo Fei will hunt for game. The 2 of you will set up a tent, collect branches, and start a fire. Got it. The few of them answered and quickly divided the work. Before the sky turned dark, they finished preparing everything. After handling the game, they placed it on the fire rack to roast. The few of them sat around and chatted. After you enter, forget your identities. Don't mention your identities so easily. You must know that in a place like that, the strength of those who enter is absolutely formidable. You must be careful in everything you do. If you show off too much, you will only become the target of robbery and assassination. Do you understand? Hearing Fengzhou's words, the 4 nodded and replied in a low voice, "Understood." This was a matter of life and death, and in a place like the Hell Mountain Range, they would naturally be cautious. She glanced at them and said, "Remember, don't stray too far from me. Otherwise, I won't be able to save you even if you're in danger." "Yes, we know." The 4 of them replied again. "This is a distress signal for you, just in case." She distributed the smoke grenades to the 4 of them and said, "Put away all your belongings. Remember, don't show off your wealth. Just put the things you need in the chinkuan pouch around your waist. You must hide a dagger in your boots." Chapter 1056. As night fell, the aroma of barbecued meat spread out. The few of them were eating and chatting when they suddenly heard something. They quickly reacted and looked around vigilantly. I didn't think there would be people here. Are you guys also going to the Hell Mountain Range?" The two people who came were two strong men wearing mercenary uniforms. One was at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage, the other was at the Golden Core stage. The one who spoke was the Golden Core stage mercenary. Seeing the people staring at them cautiously, the two mercenaries smiled brightly and said, "Don't worry, we are mercenaries from the Mercenary Union. This time, we were hired to protect our employer and came to the Hell Mountain Range. We just happened to be camping in this area. When we saw the fire here, we came to take a look." "I see." Fengjiu nodded and didn't say anything else. The two people who came closer then noticed that the people here were all teenagers, and they weren't very strong. They couldn't help but be surprised. "Are you guys going to the Hell Mountain Range? Why isn't anyone accompanying you? Aren't we people?" Ning Lang said unhappily. Don't misunderstand. What I mean is that the Hell Mountain Range is not ordinary. I see that you are all at the Foundation establishment stage. With your cultivation, if you don't have a strong person to lead you, it's best not to enter the Hell Mountain Range. Otherwise, you may not be able to come out. Thank you for your kindness, we're used to it." Hearing this, the two mercenaries knew that they weren't welcome, so they smiled and cupped their hands. "Then we won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye." Saying this, they turned and left. Seeing them leave, Songming walked a distance before coming back and saying, "They're gone. And there are indeed people camping nearby. There are at least 30 to 40 people. It's not a small group. Yes, the Hell Mountain Range is also known as the Land of Death. The dangers inside are naturally not a problem." Fengjiu nodded and looked at the people, saying, "When you enter, you must listen to my orders. Don't make decisions on your own. Unless it's absolutely necessary, don't fight with others." "Yes, we know." The people nodded in response. Duan Yi and Luo Fei will keep watch at night. You can switch them out in the second half of the night. It's the same when you're inside. When you're resting, you must have someone standing guard in the surroundings. She instructed again. Thus, after eating, they divided the leftover roast meat into 5 portions and distributed them to the 5 of them. Only then did they prepare to rest and let 2 of them take turns to keep watch. Until the next morning, when the sky had just brightened, the few of them got up and prepared before heading into the forest. Even the forest in front of them was overgrown with weeds that were about half a person's height. They couldn't even see the road clearly when they walked on it. The ground wasn't made of hard sand or stone, but rather, there was plenty of water in the forest. The soil on the ground was relatively soft, and when they stepped on it, their footsteps would sink slightly. There was also a damp smell in the air. After walking for a while, Song Ming, who was in front, said, "This road seems to have been walked by someone. The grass in front is bent and there are many footprints on the ground. This forest is the only way to get to the Hell Mountain Range. It's normal for someone to walk through it." Fengjiu said and looked up. He saw that the leaves above his head were so lush that he couldn't see the sky. The air here was cool and the sun couldn't shine in. Moreover, the surroundings looked the same. It was easy to get lost in here. Chapter 1057. Let's walk from the top. Her gaze fell on the branches and she said, "If we use the branches to move, our speed will be much faster." As soon as she finished speaking, she leaped up lightly and landed on a branch, looking down at the few people below. Seeing this, the few of them followed suit and leaped up lightly. Even Tun Yun followed beside them, imitating them to move between the branches. Just as Feng Jiu said, flying with the help of the branches was faster. On one hand, they didn't have to avoid the weeds below, and they didn't have to carefully explore the path. On the other hand, they could also use the elastic force between the branches to jump. In addition, they weren't a large team, but only a small group of 5 people. It was indeed suitable for this method of flying. In the forest, the red figure led the way in front, followed closely by the 4 people and 1 beast. They moved easily, and their speed was much faster than those who walked on foot. When it was close to noon, they passed through the forest and arrived at the foot of the Hell Mountain range. However, when they arrived, their hearts skipped a beat and they were slightly nervous. Looks like this is the right place. But why are there so many cultivators here? Moreover, how are we going to get to this place? Ning Lang looked at the cultivators who were either sitting, standing, or resting on the branches in front of them and could not help but gulp. Almost as soon as they appeared here, the people there looked at them. Pairs of eyes sized them up blatantly, as if they were evaluating their strength. They could not help but feel their scalps go numb, as if they were being stared at by hungry wolves. Most of the cultivators seemed to be itinerant cultivators. Apart from itinerant cultivators, there were also some who looked ferocious and murderous, like desperados. Moreover, there were also some who were evil cultivators, and there were more than 1 or 2 of them. Instead, they were in groups of more than 10 people. There were also some groups that seemed to be formed by clans. There were about 50 to 60 people, and the average age of the group looked to be in their 20s or 30s. Apart from the leader who was at the peak of the Golden Elixir realm, the rest of the people were generally at the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. From the perspective of these people, the appearance of the 5 teenagers here was very strange. It was no wonder that when they appeared here, pairs of eyes stared at the 5 of them and the beast, sizing them up. Teenagers with Foundation Establishment cultivation base, and there were only 5 of them. Coming to a place like this was akin to sending themselves to their deaths. Apart from Ning Lang, who felt a little apprehensive under the scrutiny of those people, the others did not change their expressions under so many people scrutinizing gazes. After glancing at those people, their gazes fell on a place in the air 100 meters in front of them. The edge of the cliff on this side of the forest was separated from the edge of the mountain on the other side by a cliff that was nearly 100 meters wide. There was nothing on either side of the cliff that could be used as a passageway. Furthermore, there was an enchantment that prohibited flying. Practitioners here could not ride their swords or fly over. Chapter 1058. There were no metal bridges or other things that could be used to cross the chasm. 100 meters was not a short distance. It was impossible to cross the chasm on one's own. Furthermore, there was no way to fly on a sword or use a flying device. Moreover, there seemed to be some kind of airflow surging up from the abyss. The whistling sound roared in the abyss, surging up from below and reverberating in the air. It was like the call of death, as if anyone who dared to pass through here would be swallowed up by the whistling airflow below. "Let's go take a look," Fengjiu said. His red figure jumped down from the tree and landed steadily on the ground. His red robes fluttered in the wind as he leisurely walked to the edge of the chasm under everyone's gaze. Duan Yi and the other 2 followed behind Feng Nine. Even Tun Yun, who looked like a little white ball, followed behind Feng Nine with its short legs. It raised its head proudly and swayed its fluffy tail, ignoring everyone's gazes as it walked. "How do we get there?" Duan Yi frowned and looked at Fengjiu. "This is the right path, right?" "Yes, this is the right place." She nodded and looked at the cliff in front of her. "However, this place is also an obstacle. Apart from isolating the ferocious beasts from the other side of the mountain range, this place is also a test for the cultivators here." She paused and her lips curled. "If we can't even cross this chasm, what right do we have to enter the Hell Mountain range? But how are we going to cross this chasm? We don't even have a rope, let alone a bridge. We can't fly on a sword or use a flying device. We can't fly over by ourselves." Luo Fei glanced at the people around him. It seemed that they were also thinking of a way to cross the chasm. However, although the Hell Mountain range was dangerous, it did not mean that no one could cross it. Why did so many people stop here? Kid, what are you looking at? A ferocious-looking cultivator saw that Luo Fei was looking around, and he fiercely shouted. The pressure of a late Foundation establishment cultivator also attacked Luo Fei. I was looking around. Where did I see you? As Luo Fei spoke, he did not fear the other party's fierce gaze or threatening tone. Although he had promised Fengzhou that he would not cause trouble, he had not done anything, so naturally, he would not be bullied. There were so many people here, but that person didn't drink. Instead, he shouted at him. Wasn't he trying to use him as a stepping stone to show everyone that he wasn't someone to be trifled with? Needless to say, that was the cultivator's plan. Everyone had been here for a few days, and no one had thought of a way to get over, but they were unwilling to leave just like that. However, because the various forces and groups didn't seem to be easy to deal with, their group of rogue cultivators was the smallest, with only a dozen or so people. Therefore, they wanted to find someone to establish their might and intimidate everyone, so as to prevent others from targeting them. Because of this, they had their eyes on these youths who had just appeared here. These people were only in the building foundation stage, and they were all in their teens. They were inexperienced in the ways of the world. As long as they were properly threatened and intimidated, and showed their savagery and bloodthirstiness, who would dare to target them? Chapter 1059. What did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. This was a person who was purely looking for trouble. He would not let go of such a small matter, deliberately using him to establish his power. Regarding this, some cultivators who understood the situation revealed looks of disdain. They couldn't do something like using a teenager to establish their authority. Seeing the other party coming forward aggressively, Luo Fei also became angry and asked in a bad mood, "What does what I say have to do with you? Did I step on your tail or scold your mother? Do you think I'm easy to bully because I'm young? You want to fight? If you want to fight, just say it. I'll accompany you. You're rebelling. How dare you talk to your grandfather like this?" That person shouted angrily. He reached out with one hand to grab Luo Fei's collar and lifted him up, while his other hand punched towards Luo Fei's face. "You son of a bitch. I'll teach you a good lesson today." Luo Fei cursed. He instantly dodged and attacked at the same time. Seeing this, the surrounding people were all interested. That big man was at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm, but that young man was only at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He should not be a match for that big man. However, based on his courage to compete with that big man, many people had a whole new level of respect for him. Duan Yi and the other two wanted to go up and help, but were stopped by Fengzhou. He can handle it. Although Luo Fei's strength was only at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, his combat strength was the type that increased when faced with a strong opponent. He might not be a match for that cultivator. Moreover, it was impossible for her to appear in everything here. As long as there was a chance, she would let them deal with the trouble they caused themselves. However, this battle was unavoidable. From the moment they came here and walked out, they had already noticed that it was unavoidable. Who looked weak and easy to bully in front of them? Since that was the case, they could only let strength speak. That cultivator wanted to use Luo Fei to establish his power. How could Luo Fei not have the same idea? Rather than being targeted again, it was better to take the initiative to attack. Moreover, using it under such circumstances was like using it in self-defense. The meaning was obvious. As long as you don't provoke me, I won't provoke you even if I'm strong. This was the purpose of this battle. Thus, he would not lose this battle. Instead, he would win. As long as he won, he would obtain the effect he wanted. Bang bang bang. Whoosh. The sound of fists colliding rang out, and the sharp sound of air currents surged around the two of them. The pressure of the foundation establishment stage emanated from their bodies, and as they struck out with their fists, an air current that could be seen with the naked eye would also follow. Both of them were foundation establishment cultivators. One of them was at the peak of the foundation establishment stage, while the other was at the middle stage. Furthermore, the latter was only a teenager. When the crowd saw that the teenager was actually able to exchange blows with his opponent despite being one level lower in strength, and even seemed to be gaining the upper hand, shock appeared in their eyes. Some of the Golden Core cultivators could see that although the youth was young, his speed was extremely fast and his movements were ingenious. He was definitely not a disciple raised by an ordinary family. Furthermore, facing a cultivator at the peak of the foundation establishment stage, he was not afraid. Instead, he was full of fighting spirit and seemed to be getting more and more courageous. Bang! Chapter 1060. Seeing that the peak foundation establishment stage cultivator was no match for the mid-foundation establishment stage youth, many people's eyes flashed with surprise. They stared thoughtfully at the youth, not knowing what they were thinking. Ah! The burly man let out an angry roar and instantly drew the large blade at his waist to slash at Luo Fei. His attack was filled with killing intent and was aggressive, causing people to be unconsciously nervous. However, the young man also unsheathed the sword at his waist and attacked, exchanging blows with the burly man. When the sword and saber collided, a clear clanging sound could be heard. The swift and fierce sword chi and the powerful saber chi collided with each other, forming an air current in the air. It whistled past the two of them, cutting small wounds on their bodies. The smell of blood permeated the air until, with a loud clang, the two of them were repelled by the two air currents. The two figures lost their balance and staggered back until they were several meters away. Even so, it was difficult to tell who was winning. Even though Luo Fei had the upper hand in terms of speed, he was still unable to kill his opponent in one blow. This could not be considered a true victory. However, with his strength, he was able to fight against a peak foundation establishment stage cultivator. This was already enough to shock a portion of the people. Of course, the Golden Core stage cultivators were an exception. Seeing that Luo Fei still wanted to fight, Fengzhou said, "All right, don't waste your energy. Let's think about how to get to the other side." Hearing this, Luo Fei stared at the burly man for a moment before sheathing his sword and walking towards Fengzhou and the others. However, at this moment, the burly man saw Luo Fei sheathing his sword and walking towards the youths. Unable to quell the anger in his heart, he clenched his teeth and swung his large blade at Luo Fei's back. Seeing this, some cultivators from the aristocratic families frowned. Some disapproved and looked down on the burly man. However, they only frowned and did not say anything. They also did not help. This was because it was not a wise move to help a few youths who they did not know anything about and offend a group of ferocious cultivators. As for the evil cultivators and rogue cultivators, they would not help or warn them. They could not be bothered to care about the life and death of others. On the contrary, they were more than happy to see blood splatter all over the ground. Luo Fei, who was walking towards Fengzhou, did not expect the burly man to be so shameless. When he turned around to look, he saw that the burly man was already 3 steps away from him. The large saber that was raised and chopped down with a murderous aura, carrying with it a sharp and powerful pressure. It chopped down at a speed that was too fast for one to cover one's ears. Even if he wanted to dodge, under such circumstances, he could not react in time. He could only watch as the large saber chopped down. Duan Yi and the others were still 3 meters away from him. When they saw this scene, they sucked in a breath of air. Some were furious, while some were stunned. Even if they had taken action, they would not have been able to save him at that speed and at that distance. Therefore, their hearts were in their mouths as they cried out in alarm, "Be careful." They hoped that he would be able to dodge in time. However, just as their voices fell, just as everyone saw the large saber chopping down and could see Luo Fei's head flying off and blood splattering all over the ground, a red figure shot out like lightning. Chapter 1061. Ah! His cry was filled with fear and shock. The burly man screamed as his entire body was kicked towards the cliff by a powerful force. He wanted to stop his body from flying, but he couldn't control the force and could only watch as he fell off the cliff. "Ah, save me, save me!" His shrill cry was accompanied by a plea for mercy as he fell from a high place into the abyss. His voice echoed and gradually disappeared into the air until it completely disappeared. This sudden scene stunned everyone. Almost at the same time, everyone around stood up, their eyes wide open as they looked at the handsome red-clothed youth who was flicking his robes. They couldn't believe that he had saved his companion so easily. Furthermore, he had acted so quickly at such a critical moment. Even though they had seen it with their own eyes, they still felt that the scene before them was somewhat unbelievable. A cultivator at the peak of the foundation establishment stage had been kicked off the cliff just like that and fell into the abyss. Luo Fei was stunned and only regained his senses after a long while. He stared blankly at Fengzhou, who was standing next to him and tidying her robes. The shock in his heart was difficult to calm down. He was the person involved, and at such a close distance, it could be said that no one present could understand the shock and stupefaction in his heart. At such a close distance, even he couldn't save himself, but Fengzhou was able to react extremely quickly and save him effortlessly. At this moment, his state of mind rose and fell like a stormy sea. His mind was completely blank. After a long while, he looked at Fengzhou, who was dressed in dazzling red robes, and said blankly, Thank you for saving me." Hearing this, Fengzhou raised her eyes and glanced at him. "Go to the back." She gestured for him to walk to Duan Yi and the others. At this moment, the burly man's group finally regained their senses and stared at Fengzhou with murderous eyes. "Brat, you're pretty good." Fengzhou glanced at those people. There were more than a dozen of them, including a few Foundation establishment cultivators and a few Golden Core cultivators. Their strength was at the peak of the Golden Core realm, and they all reeked of blood. Obviously, their hands were stained with a lot of blood. "What? Only you are allowed to kill, but we are not allowed to fight back." Her voice was cold, with a hint of laziness and coldness. It sounded like she didn't care much about this matter. However, those who were familiar with her would know that she already had murderous intent. However, these people were not familiar with her and did not feel that these youths were much of a threat. Hence, when they saw that one of their men had lost his life after being kicked off the cliff by the red-robed youth, they naturally would not stop there. A group of more than a dozen fierce-looking brawny men surrounded them one by one, brandishing the swords and sabers at their waists. Their murderous aura surged, and a bloodthirsty killing intent pervaded the surroundings, attacking Fengzhou and the others. When the surrounding people saw this, they all retreated to the side. Among them, there were some people from aristocratic families who looked at the few youths with pity. They felt that it would be a pity if such outstanding youths were to die here. Chapter 1062. As the murderous intent in the air grew more intense, the surrounding people who had nothing to do with this began to retreat. Duan Yi and the others also walked up from behind and surrounded Fengzhou, preparing to fight by his side. Even though they knew that they were not the strongest here, they were not afraid to fight, especially against people who had come to bully them. Since they want to fight, then let's fight. In this world where power reigns supreme, power decides everything. As long as they win, or use their powerful martial arts to intimidate them, these people would not dare to casually act as if they could kill them at will. Furthermore, Duan Yi, Ning Lang, and Song Ming's eyes flickered slightly as they sized up these people, calculating in their hearts. If this had been in the past, they would have been worried and afraid if they had encountered so many fierce-looking cultivators, including a few golden core cultivators. However, ever since they had fought side by side with Fengzhou to destroy the Joyous Union sect and had seen how Fengzhou could even kill a nascent soul-old monster, they were not afraid of these golden core cultivators. This was because they knew very well that with Fengzhou's power and their combined strength, it would not be easy for these people to kill them. On the contrary, if they were to fight, they would have the opportunity to kill all of these people at any time. Among them, only Luo Fei did not know that Fengzhou and the others had fought against a nascent soul cultivator before, nor did he know of Fengzhou's identity as the Ghost Doctor. At this moment, when he saw the Golden Core cultivators leading the Foundation establishment cultivators to surround them, he could not help but frown, and a grave look appeared in his eyes. His mind raced as he tried to think of a way to deal with this situation. However, just as the hostile atmosphere was about to erupt, a surprised voice was heard. It broke the tension in the air and attracted the attention of the people in the surroundings. What's going on? Are so many big guys bullying a few little kids? The astonished voice carried a trace of obvious mockery. The low voice was clear and bright, attracting Fengzhou and the others' attention. When they saw who it was, they could not help but be slightly surprised. It was the two mercenaries who they had met when they were camping out in the forest. Ha ha ha, kid, we meet again. What a coincidence. The peak stage gold core cultivator waved his hand and greeted Fengzhou and the others. When he saw them surrounded by those fierce-looking burly men, the peak stage gold core mercenary grinned. Looks like you guys are in trouble. But it makes sense. In a place like this, there are some people who specialize in bullying children and the weak. It's obvious that the few of you have both. Tell me, if they don't bully you, who will they bully? Hearing this, Fengzhou and the others' mouths twitched, and black lines appeared on their foreheads. What was a child? How were they children? They were all adults, okay. However, compared to those older people, they were indeed a little too young. However, there were both children and weaklings. What kind of taste did this guy have? How could he tell that they were weak? When the dozen or so fierce-looking burly men saw the two mercenaries talking to the youths, their faces immediately darkened. The peak gold core cultivator in the lead gloomily stared at the two mercenaries and sneered sinisterly. Chapter 1063. Hearing this, the golden core mercenary laughed out loud when he saw the man's disdainful and gloomy gaze. What do you mean by standing up for these kids? We just can't bear to see such big men like you bullying a few kids. However, from what you've said, it seems that you want to compete with us. Then let me remind you first. You can tell that we are mercenaries just by looking at our clothes. It's not just the two of us. On the other hand, you have to think carefully. Do you want to compete with us? If you do, our swords won't be retracted until there's blood. Hearing this blatant threat, the faces of the dozen or so people darkened. They stared at the two people and saw that their brows were filled with confidence. They didn't have the slightest bit of fear or cowardice. They couldn't help but ponder in their hearts. Mercenary teams usually had a few dozen people in a team. Furthermore, their strength wasn't weak. The two people who were sent to scout were probably not the strongest in the team. If that was the case, then, after thinking for a while, the Golden Core peak stage cultivator in the lead fiercely swept a glance at Fengzhou and the others. He snorted heavily. Brats, consider yourself lucky. However, you better pray that these mercenaries will always protect you. Otherwise, if we get the chance, you will definitely die without a burial ground. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at that person. He couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She looked at the two mercenaries. Although she felt that they could deal with these people, since they had appeared to help them, she had to thank them. After all, there were so many people around, and only these two mercenaries whom they had met once stood up. Many thanks. She cupped her hands and thanked the two from afar. No need, no need. It's a small matter. The Golden Core cultivator waved his hand. The Foundation establishment cultivator beside him also grinned. However, why did you run ahead of us? Also, do you really intend to enter the Hell Mountain range? That place is not a place where you children can go to play. Listen to me and go home obediently. The Golden Core mercenary said, thinking that they were children who had sneaked out of home. It was likely that the few of them had gathered and snuck here. However, the Hell Mountain range was not a place where children like them could enter. If they went in, they would only die. Just look at the situation now. They hadn't even reached the other side yet, but they had already been targeted here and provoked a fatal disaster. If they went further in, wouldn't it be worse? Some of the surrounding family members pretended not to hear the mercenaries' persuasion. They closed their eyes and sat cross-legged to regulate their chi. Earlier, they did not lend a helping hand, nor did they speak up to warn him. It could be said that they were watching from the sidelines. However, they did not feel that they had done anything wrong, nor were they too cold and heartless. This was the way of the world. Who would help you if you didn't have any relatives? And even have to bear the consequences of getting into trouble? Perhaps there were a few who were zealous for justice, but it was definitely not them. Fengjiu and the rest understood his good intentions. Hence, they only smiled and said, "We are not here to play." So, you really intend to go in? The Golden Core mercenary looked at them in surprise. He originally thought that since they were already here, it would be fine if they went back after taking a look. He didn't expect that they really wanted to continue forward. Chapter 1064. Fengjiu nodded. Yes, we're going to the Hell Mountain range. You guys can get through. This place is not easy to get through. The Golden Core mercenary grinned and pointed at the 100-meter-high cliff in front of them. If you accidentally fall down, you'll be smashed to pieces with no chance of survival. Also, this place is strange. Flying devices and swords can't be used. Even if you use your chi to fly, very few people can jump 100 meters. Yes, so I'm thinking of a way. She smiled and looked at the abyss. Since this was a path they had to go through, there must be a way to get through. Seeing this, the Golden Core mercenary smiled and said a few words to the Foundation establishment mercenary beside him. The Foundation establishment mercenary returned first and the Golden Core mercenary came to Fengjiu's side. I really don't know why you guys want to go there. Aren't you afraid of death? He looked at them curiously. These youths were dressed in extraordinary clothes and had an outstanding aura. He could tell at a glance that they were the children of aristocratic families. However, he didn't expect them to not be afraid of death and say that they wanted to go to the Hell Mountain range. Of course it's because there's money there. Ning Lang smiled and said in a light and expectant tone. I've heard that the spiritual herbs there are all aged. There are also beast crystals and the like. That's all money. Hearing his words, a trace of astonishment appeared in the eyes of the surrounding people. Money? These youths actually came here for money. That's not worth it at all. However, some of them looked at Fengjiu's group and felt that they might not be here for money because these youths were dressed in extraordinary clothes. How could they lack money? Some of them came here to look for spiritual herbs, some to look for treasures, some to see if there were any opportunities, some to gain experience, some to get to know people from the 8 great empires. Of course, there were also those who wanted to rob others of their treasures. There really wasn't anyone who came here purely for money. The Golden Core mercenary laughed and shook his head. Then I have to advise you not to go in. This place is really a place of death. You've been inside? Ning Lang asked. Hearing this, the other people's gazes also fell on the Golden Core mercenary. Most of them were here for the first time and had never entered. Otherwise, they would not have been obstructed by this place and could not pass through even if they wanted to. That's right, I've been here once. Otherwise, our employer wouldn't have chosen our mercenary team this time. Don't you think so? Then you know how to get there. The Jean Dan mercenary laughed but didn't say anything else. Seeing this, the eyes of the others flashed slightly. If he knew how to cross, then they just had to wait and see how he crossed this 100-meter high cliff, and they could learn to follow him. Thinking of this, his originally anxious heart gradually calmed down. Although the Hell Mountain range was full of danger, it was also very attractive to them. Even though they knew it was dangerous and that they might lose their lives, they still wanted to go in and give it a try. Chapter 1065. Fengjiu and the others nodded and watched him walk back to the mercenary team. She turned her gaze and saw that the group of fierce-looking cultivators were still staring at them. She couldn't help but curl her lips and calmly retracted her gaze. Do you guys have any ideas? Fengjiu turned around and looked at Duan Yi and the others. After Luo Fei took a deep breath, he said to Fengjiu, I just observed that there's a stream of air coming up from the bottom of this abyss every once in a while. If we raise our qi and pass by, we'll definitely be sucked down. Moreover, even if we don't get sucked down, we'll still fall down due to the disturbance of the qi in our bodies. The best way is if there's a rope that can connect the 2 ends of this cliff. Using the rope to pass through should be the best way. How does this rope reach the mountain range that's 100 meters away? Ning Lang scratched his head and said. I can do that. Song Ming said and grinned at them. We can tie spikes to the rope and use arrows to shoot the rope over and nail it to the other side's mountain range. That's risky. As Duan Yi spoke, he looked towards the few of them and said, This method may work, but I feel that if this is the case, those people who are watching us will not let us pass safely. It is extremely likely that the moment we walk on that rope, they will use a sinister move to make us fall into the bottomless abyss. That's right, that's right. Those despicable people will really do that. Ning Lang nodded in agreement and felt that it was very possible. You guys go first, I'll stay behind. Fengjiu said and smiled. This way, we won't have to worry. But that's it. However, before that, we can't let others take advantage of us. Her eyes flickered and specks of light appeared. You guys go and find some branches and dry leaves first, then pick up a few stones. What are we going to do? Duan Yi asked in confusion. You'll know when the time comes. She curled her lips and didn't explain in detail. All right. The few of them nodded, and just as they were about to walk away, they saw that the mercenary team seemed to be moving as well. Looking over there, they saw that the 30 to 40 mercenaries were surrounding the edge of the cliff and seemed to be doing something. In the middle of them was an old man. The old man was wearing gray clothes and had white hair. His cultivation was at the nascent soul stage, which made Fengjiu feel surprised. A nascent soul stage looking for someone to protect him. Moreover, although the strength of the mercenary team was generally not low, except for a few Jindan stage cultivators, there was only one Yuanying stage cultivator. It seemed that the Yuanying stage cultivator should be the leader of the mercenary team. Although the mercenary teams, the nascent soul stage cultivators, the old man's a nascent soul stage cultivator. They actually had to travel together with them. Go! Let's not waste any more time, Fengzhou said to the others. Okay. The few of them responded and didn't pay attention to the situation over there. Instead, they did their own things. Not long after, Duan Yi and the others brought back the things Fengzhou wanted and placed them at the edge of the cliff. The others couldn't help but sneer when they saw them bringing leaves, stones and the like. Chapter 1066. The others around them shook their heads when they saw this. Children were children after all. They were young and did things recklessly. How could they do something like this in a place like this? Hence, they no longer paid attention to Fengzhou and the others. Instead, they looked at the mercenaries on the other side, wanting to see how they would cross this place. No one noticed that Fengzhou and the others were lighting up leaves and fiddling with rocks. Under the watchful eyes of the people around them, they started to set up a formation. The few people who originally appeared in the eyes of the people around them gradually disappeared as the formation was set up and the thick smoke filled the air. It was as if they had disappeared without a trace. However, the people around them did not notice it yet. They were looking at the mercenaries. At this moment, the few people in the formation took out the ropes they had prepared. There were sharp nails on both ends of the ropes. Song Ming took out his bow and arrow magic weapon and shot one end of the rope, nailing it to the cliff on the opposite side. They saw the rope fly out with a whoosh under the guidance of the sharp arrow. It was firmly nailed to the opposite side. They tugged at the firmness of the rope. After confirming that it was safe, they nailed the other end to the ground under their feet. Who's going first? Song Ming looked at them and asked. I'll go first. As Duan Yi spoke, he walked to the front of the rope and said to the few of them, when we cross this rope, we have to avoid the airflow that surges up from below. In other words, when the airflow descends, we have to pass through quickly. We can't stop. I'll go over first and meet you on the other side. The few of them nodded. Be careful. Got it. Duan Yi replied. His doll-like face was solemn. When he saw the airflow descending, he stabilized the chi in his body and opened his arms to balance his body. Only then did he quickly step on the rope and rush over. With the help of the rope, the distance of 100 meters did not seem very far. In a short while, he arrived safely on the other side in front of the few of them. With someone on the other side to meet them, the people on this side were even more relieved. Hence, Ning Lang was the second to go over. Although Ning Lang's figure was round and likable among the few youths, he was not timid. He stepped on the rope and did not stop for a moment. He also arrived safely on the other side. They didn't make any noise. When they reached the other side, they just waved at the few people on this side, using the thick fog to avoid the sight of those people, and also to make themselves safer. The third to go over was Luo Fei, followed by Song Ming. Only when he saw that they had safely reached the other side did Fengzhou reveal a smile. However, at this moment, the voices of those people came from outside. Where are those kids? Why is there so much smoke here? Fengzhou's eyes flickered when she heard the sound coming closer. Her lips curled up as she flicked her finger and added something to the small bonfires. She waited until the airflow from the abyss subsided before she put the swallow cloud back into her space. She opened her arms and stepped on the rope as she rushed forward. Behind her, the sound that attracted her attention could be faintly heard. Fuck. This was a formation. Those brats are actually setting up a formation right under our noses. What are they doing? Damn it. Where is he? Why are they hiding in the array formation? Ah. Something's not right. Look over there, isn't that them? Chapter 1067. They actually made it over. How did they make it over? These fellows are really something. They actually made it over without saying a word. What method did they use? The surrounding people gathered around one by one. Some were thinking of ways to break the array, while others were guessing how Fingzhou and the rest had made it over. From a higher position, the mercenaries also saw the figures 100 meters away from them. Because the red figures were too dazzling, they could recognize them at a glance. Even the mercenaries were surprised to see that among so many people, it was actually those few youngsters who were the first to go over. The Golden Core mercenary saw Fingzhou and the rest make it over and couldn't help but grin and shake his head. These fellows are too reckless, but I can't tell that they have some ability. There are signs of nails being nailed here. Did they use ropes to make it over? On the other side, those who had already broken the array were staring at that place. Noticing that they might have made it over with the help of ropes, they were eager to give it a try. But this is a distance of 100 meters, how can the other end of the rope shoot over there? None of us have any arrows, aww. And even if we do, we don't have the ability to shoot over 100 meters. Other than magic weapons, ordinary arrows would not be able to shoot over such a distance. Strange, why do I feel a little weak in my head? Me too. For a moment, those people didn't have time to think of a solution and had already fallen to the ground due to breathing in the thick smoke. Some of the accompanying doctors from the aristocratic families examined them and told them that it was caused by breathing in the thick smoke. Everyone thought that it was because of the thick smoke that caused them to feel uncomfortable, but they didn't expect that it was because Fingzhou had thrown the pills into the small fire. As for the other side, Fingzhou and the rest who had already reached the boundary of the Hell Mountain range glanced at those people, smiled, and turned to walk into the dense forest. The place where they were at was not the periphery of the Hell Mountain range, so the danger level was lower. The weeds here were taller than the ones over there, and there were no paths to walk through in the dense forest. Those paths could only be made by themselves. Be careful, Fingzhou said as he paid attention to the movements around him. She walked in the middle, with Duan Yi and Luo Fei in front, Ning Lang and Song Ming behind her, and Tun Yun by her side. Because of the messy weeds, the obstruction of the branches, and the need to pay attention to the movements around them and be on guard against possible dangers, they walked rather slowly. It wasn't until 6 hours later that they walked out of the dense forest. However, at this time, the sky had already darkened. Even though the sun had not set yet, in this Hell Mountain range, due to the cover of the mountain peaks and dense forests, the night would always be much longer than the day. We've already passed through the forest. Look, we're already at the outer ring of the Hell Mountain range. Chapter 1068. Why does this place look like a ghost forest? Ning Lang leaned towards Duan Yi, feeling a little creeped out. He felt that the forest was so eerie that it made him uneasy. I have the same feeling too. Luo Fei nodded, feeling a little apprehensive. The trees here only had branches without leaves. Moreover, the branches stretched out in all directions like ghost claws. Other than the branches that intertwined together like a giant net, there were also some branches that formed claws at the bottom. Moreover, there were dense vines growing on these branches. These vines were thin and hung down from the branches in the air. They were also covered with dense fine hair, which was very strange. Fingzhou glanced at the forest in front of them, then said to them, "This is all the information I have. I know nothing about the inside, so I'll say it again. You must be careful." They nodded and asked, "It's getting late. Should we go in tomorrow? Or now?" Hearing this, she glanced at them and said, "Everyone is tired today, so let's rest here first. We'll leave tomorrow morning. However, don't light a fire here to attract attention." "We know," they replied and found a place to sit down and rest. "Don't wander around here. I'll scout ahead." Fengzhou instructed, then said to Tun Yun, "You stay here and guard." "Oh whoa." Tun Yun howled and lay down at the side. "I'll go with you," Duan Yi said and walked to Fengzhou's side. "They can rest here." "I'll go with you." Fengzhou smiled when he saw the serious expression on the baby-faced Duan Yi's face. "All right. Let's go. Be careful," the other three reminded them. "Got it." The two of them waved their hands and walked towards the forest in front of them. However, as soon as they walked in, they felt that something was wrong. It was as if the branches could move. At that moment, there was a rustling sound, and a human face appeared on the tree trunk. It had eyes, a nose, and a mouth. The ghost claws formed by the surrounding branches stretched out at that moment and surrounded the two of them. Seeing this scene, Ning Lang, Luo Fei, and Song Ming were shocked. They quickly stood up and ran over, but before they could get close, Fengzhou shouted, "Don't come over." As soon as his voice fell, there was a whoosh of air, and the branches that surrounded them were cut off and scattered on the ground. Green liquid spurted out from the branches, and when it splashed on the ground, it made sizzling sounds and corroded a hole in the ground. The human faces that appeared on the tree seemed to howl in pain, and the human faces that originally appeared shrank back into the tree and disappeared. It was as if the scene they saw before was just an illusion. Seeing this scene, Fengzhou and Duan Yi were shocked. They quickly retreated and returned to Ning Lang and the others. "The trees in this forest have become spirits," Fengzhou said in shock. His eyes were still filled with disbelief. This was the first time he had seen trees that had become spirits. Although he knew that the vegetation here could also become spirits, seeing it with his own eyes and imagining it was a different feeling. Chapter 1069. They retreated to their original spot to discuss. This place was so strange, so they naturally couldn't be careless. "I saw that the trees grew out of human faces, and it wasn't just one or two trees, but the surrounding trees. I'm sure the entire forest is like this. Trees belong to the wood element, so I'm thinking that even if they become spirits, they should still be afraid of fire," Luo Yi said, staring at the branches that danced at them as if they were demonstrating their power. Hearing this, Song Ming nodded and said, "Other than being afraid of fire, since sharp swords can cut through them, there's nothing to be afraid of. Even if we're trapped inside, we can break through those branches. Actually, if we think about it carefully, it shouldn't be a big deal. As long as we're careful, we should be fine." Seeing this, after calming down for a while, Fengzhou said, "I'll try again." She was the one who brought them in. Encountering such a situation, she naturally had to find a solution. They already knew that these tree spirits were afraid of swords and sabers, so did that mean they were afraid of fire? Then they had to try again. "It's already dark, so let's forget it. We'll go in together tomorrow morning," they said, worried that something might go wrong in the night. "It's fine, I know what I'm doing," she said. This time, she went in alone and didn't let them follow her. She still left Tun Yun to guard them, just in case. Seeing Fengzhou walk into the strange forest, the few of them held their breaths and watched from behind. When they saw the branches reach out like ghostly claws and attack Fengzhou, he flipped his palm, and a flame shot up with a whoosh. The branches that reached forward couldn't dodge in time and were burned by the flame, shrinking back with a whoosh. Seeing this scene, the anxious hearts of the few people were slightly relieved. Fortunately, these tree spirits were really afraid of fire. This made things easier. As long as they each had a torch, they could pass through this forest without fighting. Fengzhou walked inside with large strides. After about an hour, she walked back the way she came and said to Duan Yi and the others, "This area is filled with these tree spirits. I didn't see any ferocious beasts. However, I was actually able to find a stock of spirit medicine along the way. It's a bit surprising. Spiritual medicine. What spiritual medicine? Is it valuable? Ning Lang hurried forward and asked when he saw him return. 100-year-old spiritual medicine is worth a bit of money outside. She smiled and took out the spiritual medicine to show them. Then, she put it away. Seeing this, Ning Lang's eyes lit up, and he said, "It's a treasure land indeed. You've only been in there for about an hour and you've already found a stock of spiritual medicine. Who knows, there might be even more as you go deeper. Alright, let's eat something and take a rest." As she spoke, she walked to their side and sat down. However, at this moment, they suddenly heard a rustling sound. They were startled and quickly looked around. What was that sound? Look! There! Ning Lang's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the mass of black objects flying towards him. He stammered, What are those? Why does it look like a bat? What do you mean by resembling a bat? That's clearly a bat, okay? Duan Yeet said snappily. But its eyes are red. A bat's eyes are black, right? Ning Lang swallowed his saliva and said. Chapter 1070. When the others heard this, their expressions changed. They quickly drew their swords and slashed at the black swarm of blood bats that were attacking them. Sharp sword chi whizzed out and dispersed the large swarm of blood bats. The sound of the blood bats flapping their wings could be heard, and the scattered blood bats looked even more terrifying. There were so many of them that it made their scalps tingle. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Ah! Damn it, why are there so many of them? Whoosh! Flames shot out and burned dozens of blood bats. When he saw the blood bats that were burned to death retract their wings and fall from the sky like rats, Fengjiu's hair stood on end. It was too disgusting. Seeing the endless blood bats surrounding them and attacking them, Duan Yi couldn't help but shout, "There are so many of them. We can't kill them all even if we want to. Then what can we do? It's the middle of the night. Are we supposed to retreat? Or enter the strange forest in front?" Song Ming said. His heart was also in his mouth. This was serious. If they weren't careful, they could lose their lives here. Fengjiu gritted his teeth and said, "Enter the forest. Let's use the tree spirits to trap the blood bats and burn them." With that, he led them into the strange forest in front of them. Behind them, the blood bats still surged forward and chased after them. "Follow closely. Don't get separated," Fengjiu said to the people behind him as he used his flames to open a path. The tree spirits that came into contact with the flames quickly retracted their branches and dodged. "Flaming lion! Come out!" Duan Yi roared. With a flash of light, his flaming lion pounced out of his spirit beast space and quickly joined the battle. The chaotic bloodthirsty bats were like the claws of ghosts, waving the branches that were attacking them. They didn't dare to relax in the slightest. Their bodies were tense, and the swords in their hands were slashing out. Only the sound of sharp sword chi coming out of the pitch-black forest could be heard. Sword scars were cut open on the ground, and chi flowed in all directions, filling the air. The blood bats around them fell to the ground, and the smell of blood permeated the air. Many of the branches of the tree spirits had been chopped off, and they no longer dared to reach out toward them. On the contrary, the ghost claws of the tree spirits reached out and grabbed the blood bats. Then, the tree spirits' faces appeared on the tree bodies. They opened their mouths and swallowed the blood bats. As the number of blood bats dwindled, the remaining ones eventually circled above their heads. They had to avoid the hooks of the tree branches. In the end, they could only flap their wings and flee. Phew! I'm so tired. Ning Lang was sweating profusely. Because of this, he leaned against a tree at the side. As soon as he made this move without thinking, a human face instantly appeared on the tree trunk. The tree branches pressed down on Ning Lang like claws, wanting to stuff him into its mouth. Hiss! Ning Lang was shocked. He cried out involuntarily, Save me. The few of them were panting and trying to catch their breath, so they didn't pay attention to him. Who knew that when they heard his cry, they were so shocked that they jumped up and quickly looked toward him. They couldn't help but be stunned when they saw him. Phew! Duanye's flaming lion spat out a mouthful of flames, aiming directly at the mouth of the human face. The tree spirit screamed in pain. The entire tree quickly burned, and Ning Lang ran back because of this. Chapter 1071. The others were speechless. They glanced at him and scolded, "Why did you throw yourself into the mouth of that tree spirit? Do you want to die?" Ning Lang looked at them with some grievance and said, "I wasn't paying attention for a moment. When I saw that the danger was over, I relaxed and forgot that these trees eat people too." He then added, "I won't do it again." This place was indeed hell. They could lose their lives at any time due to carelessness. Even though they had personally experienced many things along the way, they still felt a little scared at this moment. Fortunately, his companions were all very strong. Otherwise, he would have been sucked dry by that blood bat. "Alright, since we're all here, let's go. Follow this path forward. We don't have a specific target anyway, so we don't need to be fast. Safety comes first." Fengjiu said and sighed softly. "Yes, we know." The others responded and lit torches. They used the torches to illuminate the path inside. At the same time, the surrounding tree spirits would avoid them and not dare to attack. I saw that these trees eat blood bats. Could it be that these tree spirits like to eat people other than blood bats? Thinking of the scene where the tree spirit that caught him opened its mouth and tried to eat him, his heart started to race again. There are many things here that we haven't come into contact with before. Logically speaking, trees shouldn't eat people. However, these trees have already become spirits. It's very likely that they are the same type of plant as the man-eating flower. Compared to the man-eating flower that swallows a person whole, I think these tree spirits at most suck the essence of a person. After all, their mouth can't swallow a person whole. At this point, Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "Among the few of us, only you are white and chubby. You look like you have a lot of juice. You have to be careful. Not only do tree spirits eat people, but even giant flowers or ferocious beasts will probably like someone like you." Hearing this, Ning Lang's hair stood on end. He said, "Don't scare me." "How am I scaring you?" "I'm just reminding you to prevent you from pouncing on precious spiritual herbs. You have to know that some spiritual herbs have ferocious beasts guarding them. Some might be a poisonous snake, some might be a ferocious beast, and some might even be poisonous insects. In short, even if you see a spiritual herb or something, you must make sure it's safe before approaching it." The others nodded. Among them, Luo Fei said, "Moreover, as far as I know, there are also acts of robbery. Apart from the few of us, we have to be vigilant against outsiders. We can only speak to people we meet. If there are benefits in front of us, we have to think twice about it. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The more benefits there are, the more danger there is, there." Chapter 1072. After they sat down, Fengjiu looked at them and asked, "Are you all hurt?" "No, my clothes were only torn. I didn't hurt my skin," Duan Yi and the others said. Not long after they finished speaking, they saw Ning Lang take off his torn clothes and put on 2 more clothes from his space. They noticed that other than the clothes he was wearing, there seemed to be a small golden vest. Thus, Luo Fei asked, Ning Lang, what's that shiny golden vest for? Ning Lang, who was putting on his clothes, paused when he heard this. He pulled open the collar of his clothes and pointed at the innermost one. He asked, You mean this one? My mother gave this to me on my birthday last year. She said that she asked someone to refine it especially for me. This is a treasured garment. I've been wearing it ever since I got it. She said that it can protect my life if I'm invulnerable. Speaking of this, he chuckled. But I haven't encountered any danger in the past. I don't know if it's really invulnerable, but it's still good to wear it, just in case. Hearing this, the others couldn't help but smile. Duan Yi looked at the pair of boots on his feet, then looked at the one he was wearing underneath. He couldn't help but say, You have a lot of treasures. Each and every one of them is a lifesaver. That's right. My family doesn't have anything but money. With money, what can't I have? He proudly raised his chin, looking as if he was a tycoon and he was not afraid of anyone. Seeing this, everyone laughed. The whole atmosphere also eased a little because of this. It became less dignified and instead revealed a sense of relaxation and joy. Alright, you guys quickly rest. Duan Yi, the 2 of us will keep watch. Luo Fei said, indicating that they should seize the time to rest and recover their energy. Thus, the 2 of them kept watch while the others rested. In the second half of the night, Fengjiu woke up and said to the 2 of them, You guys go and sleep for a while. I'll keep watch here. Okay. Thus, it was Fengjiu's turn to keep watch. The night wind here was cold and gloomy, carrying with it the scent of the earth and grass. There were also ghost-like howls. Judging from the sound, it seemed to be coming from the tree spirits. Therefore, it was actually very difficult to fall asleep in such an environment. However, there were people who were able to sleep soundly and even started snoring. Song Ming woke up and sat with Fengjiu. He looked at Ning Lang, who was sleeping like a pig, and said with a smile, Only he can sleep so soundly here. This guy is really broad-minded and fat. Fengjiu chuckled. He's tired from the journey. He probably hasn't tried walking like this at home in the past, experiencing so many things in one day. Hearing this, Song Ming looked at the red-clothed Fengjiu and asked curiously, Actually, I don't understand why you would want to bring us to the Hell Mountain Range. You've never been here before, have you? Unknown dangers. Aren't you afraid that something will happen here? Even if he had the strength of a golden core, even if he was the ghost doctor, in this Hell Mountain Range, the strength of a golden core was far from enough. Why wasn't he afraid that they would all die here, and that they would never be able to leave after entering here? Chapter 1073. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled, since it's an experience, naturally there will be challenges. If there isn't a challenge, how can I stimulate the potential in my body? Cultivation has always been a path that defies the heavens. If you want to become strong, how can there be a smooth journey? Song Ming looked at him, his heart slightly moved. Actually, with your current status, there's no need for you to come to such a dangerous place. After all, the risk is too great. As long as you say the word, I believe there will be many strong cultivators to protect you. Not only was he a pill master, he was also an alchemist. He was also a ghost doctor who had the ability to bring the dead back to life. This kind of person, no matter where he went, would be a distinguished guest. There was no need for him to come to such a place for experience. It's better to rely on yourself than on others. Fengjiu said and smiled, No matter how strong others are, it doesn't belong to you. Only when you are strong, that's the best. This way, even if you want to protect the people you want to protect, you have enough strength. Protect the people you want to protect. His expression was slightly startled, and he softly muttered, "The people I want to protect are no longer here. No matter how strong I am, I can't protect them." She glanced at him, knowing that he was referring to his mother who had already passed away. "Thus," she said, "you're still young. In the future, you will meet people you want to protect." Hearing this, he laughed. "What do you mean you're still young? Are you saying you're very old? You're really treating us like children." Fengjiu curled the corner of his lips and did not reply. Indeed, the age of her two lives added together was not young. She really did treat them like children. She raised her head slightly and looked at the huge net formed by the interweaving branches above her head. She was thinking in her heart that after taking care of them for a year and settling everything, she would go to a first-class country to bring her mother home. As long as she brought her mother home and reunited with her father, she could then prepare to enter the 8 great empires and meet Mose. In a year's time, would she be able to enter the nascent soul stage? She was looking forward to this. Early in the morning, the sunlight shone into the forest. The tree spirits in the forest bathed in this warm sunlight. They actually retracted their tree claws and stood still like normal trees. Strange, why are these tree spirits different from the ones at night? As Ning Lang spoke, he looked at the trees that had retracted their branches and claws. Although the branches above were still intertwined to form a large net, it looked like there was no attack power at all from below. Could he be faking it on purpose? As Luo Fei spoke, he glanced at them and tried to walk out and touch the trees. Unexpectedly, there was no reaction at all. It was as if what they saw from the evening until last night was just an illusion. Perhaps the habits of day and night are different. Fengjiu said thoughtfully, "That's even better. Let's get out of this forest before evening, just in case something happens at night." "Alright, let's go." They stomped out the fire and cleaned up the traces they left behind. Only then did they move forward, intending to get out of this strange place as soon as possible by evening. Chapter 1074. Among the branches in front, the thing that was entangled by the vines and branches seemed to be a person. "It looks like a woman," Song Ming said. "That's impossible. How could there be a woman in this place?" "I'd probably believe it if it was a female demon," Luo Fei said, thinking that it couldn't be a woman. "Whether it's a man or a woman, it's a human. It can't be wrong," Duan Yi said, and instinctively looked at Fengjiu. "What should we do? Should we go and take a look?" In his heart, he was thinking, there's a person hanging here, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Help. Help. At this moment, the person over there seemed to have woken up, calling for help in a weak voice. Judging from the voice, it really was a woman. "I told you it was a woman," Song Ming said, striding over there. "It's one thing if we don't see it, but now that we see it, we should at least take a look and save her, right?" Seeing this, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows, smiling faintly but not saying anything. "Song Ming, aren't you afraid that it's a trap?" Ning Lang shouted. Being cautious, he was worried that it was a trap. There was no one else in this place except for them, but there was such a woman hanging here, and her blood essence was not sucked dry by those tree spirits last night. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem normal. Hearing the words behind him, Song Ming stopped in his tracks and looked back. He saw that they were all standing there, and even Fengjiu was smiling, just watching without saying anything. He couldn't help but scratch his head, looking at Fengjiu and asking, "This shouldn't be a trap, right?" "It's okay, save her if you want to," Fengjiu said, raising his chin, indicating that since he wanted to save her, he didn't have to worry too much. Anyway, even if there was a trap, he would remember it. When the others heard this, they couldn't help but be stunned. Really? It's okay. It doesn't matter if it's okay. Anyway, didn't we come here to find trouble and gain experience? All kinds of unexpected things can happen, and we can't guard against them no matter how hard we try. So sometimes, we have to follow our hearts. Of course, the prerequisite is that we have the ability to deal with all kinds of changes. Hearing this, the other's eyes moved slightly. What he meant was that as long as they wanted to do something, he would not stop them. However, they had to bear the consequences and risks themselves. Song Ming looked at the woman in front of him who was crying for help. He hesitated for a moment, but still stepped forward. He took out the long sword at his waist and cut off the vines and tree claws. When the woman who was hanging fell from midair, he went forward to catch her. "Miss, are you all right?" He looked at the pale-faced woman and asked. She looked to be in her 20s. Her face was pale and her hair was messy. However, other than the fact that she was a little weak, there was nothing wrong with her. "Miss, why are you hanging here alone? Where are your companions?" Luo Fei asked with a smile on his face. "I'm a cultivator who came out with my family to train. Last night, I came out to relieve myself, but I accidentally lost my way. The torch in my hand went out, and I was caught by this tree spirit," the woman said weakly. After catching her breath, she continued, "This tree spirit left a wound on my body and sucked my essence and blood from the wound. I was so weak that I couldn't even save myself." She looked at them and said gratefully, "Thank you. Thank you for saving me." Chapter 1075. There's no one else. Could it be that they've left? The woman muttered in astonishment. When she thought of this, her face was filled with sorrow. Perhaps they've given up on me. After all, why would they come looking for me when I haven't returned for a night in a place like this? We've already saved you. That's it. Goodbye. Song Ming helped her to the side and leaned against a tree, cupping his hands as he spoke. "You're leaving me here?" The woman seemed to be shocked by his words. She bit her lip and asked, "Can you please bring me along for a while? If you leave me here, I could die at any time. But I originally only planned to save you from the tree. I didn't think that I'd have to bring you along after saving you. This is different from what I originally thought." Song Ming waved his hand and said, "Furthermore, we're all grown men. It's not good for us to bring a woman like you along. Saving your life is already extremely good. Don't make things difficult for us." As he spoke, Song Ming looked at Fingzhou and the others. "Let's go." The few of them raised their eyebrows and were somewhat surprised. However, they didn't say anything. Since he said to leave, then let's leave. When the woman behind saw that the few of them really turned around and left, she couldn't help but be stunned. It seemed that she didn't expect that these few youths would abandon her here after saving half of her life. "How is it? Didn't I say that you're already old? This kind of method won't work anymore." Just as Fingzhou and the others walked a distance away, they heard a woman's mocking voice from behind. The few of them stopped in their tracks and looked back in surprise. They saw that more than 20 cultivators had suddenly leaped out from behind them. Among them, 2 or 3 were women. It's really a trap. Song Ming rubbed his head and smiled at Fingzhou and the others. "But I've long realized that something was wrong. That's why I didn't want to bring her along." After suffering once, he was naturally more vigilant. Furthermore, they were in the Hell Mountain range. He couldn't afford to be careless. He didn't expect that when this woman saw that he didn't fall for her trick, people from the shadows would rush out just like that. There were more than 20 cultivators, and their strength ranged between mid-stage and late-stage foundation establishment. Among them, only 2 were at the Golden Core realm. The group was scattered without any pattern, and they should be itinerant cultivators. Fengjiu glanced at those people, then said to them, "All right, these people will be your practice. If you meet anyone who has designs on us, I don't mind if you rob them of their treasures." Hearing this, Ning Lang was the most excited one. His eyes on his chubby and likable face lit up with excitement. "Really? Are we allowed to rob others in here?" Song Ming, Duan Yi, and Luo Fei glanced at Ning Lang speechlessly. Did they really think that it was so easy to snatch the people inside? Didn't he see that the other party's strength was at the middle and late foundation establishment stage, and there were even 2 golden core cultivators among them? Fengjiu said those words because he wanted to give them an experience and a challenge. If they didn't handle this challenge well, they might lose their lives. That was why he said that he didn't mind snatching the other party's money and treasures. The meaning was to tempt them with benefits, letting them know that if they lost, they would lose their lives, but if they won, they would get those things. They would not risk their lives for nothing. Chapter 1076. Only Ning Lang's eyes lit up. He was so excited that he didn't realize the murderous intent. All he could think about was how many valuable things were in their chinkuan bags. If these people had been robbing people for a living, they must have a lot of valuable treasures and elixirs. Fengjiu also said that he didn't object to them robbing people who wanted to rob them. Did that mean that they could rob people who wanted to rob them in the future? When he thought of this, his entire body became excited. Yes, we won't provoke those who didn't provoke us, and we won't try to rob them. But those who want to rob us, as long as we can rob them, they'll be ours. As she spoke, she smiled and patted Ning Lang's shoulder. She said encouragingly, "You have to work hard. These people look like they have a lot of treasures." Hearing this, Ning Lang clenched his hands into fists. His chubby face was solemn, and his eyes shone with excitement. "Yes, don't worry. I won't let you down." When the others heard this, they couldn't help but look at Ning Lang. They reminded him, they have more people than us. Moreover, they're all in the late stage of the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. There are 2 golden core cultivators among them. It's okay. Our leader is here. What are you afraid of? Ning Lang raised his chin and looked at Fengjiu with trust. "I won't do anything. It's up to you," Fengjiu said. Under Ning Lang's shocked gaze, he took Tun Yun and instantly retreated to the back. He took a deep breath and sat on a tree branch to watch them. "Ha!" Ning Lang was dumbfounded. He was so excited that he didn't know that Fengjiu didn't want to help. In his opinion, Fengjiu was so powerful that even 2 golden core cultivators wouldn't be a match for him, let alone 2. He didn't expect that Fengjiu didn't want to do anything. "What are you huff about? Didn't you hear him say that this is an experience for us?" Duan Yi patted his head in annoyance. "Don't look so silly. You'll lose your life if you make a mistake." Hearing this, Ning Lang gathered his thoughts and looked at the 20 people in front of him. He swallowed and finally realized that things were serious. Even his forehead was sweating because of his nervousness. "Let's fight then. For the sake of their chinkuan bags, for the sake of those treasures, I'll stake it all." "Ah!" As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly shouted loudly. After taking out his long sword, he rushed towards the people in front of him, giving Duan Yi and the others a fright. "This lunatic! Why didn't you say anything before making a move?" The few of them gritted their teeth and raised their auras. They drew their swords and charged towards those people. Is there something wrong with their brains? When the 20 or so people heard their words, they were all stunned. They wanted to rob them with just these few people? Furthermore, one of them didn't intend to make a move. Could it be that they couldn't see that their strength was above theirs? Wasn't this just courting death? Kill! You reckless fool! Under the command of a golden core cultivator, more than 20 rogue cultivators instantly released their killing intent and rushed forward with their swords in hand. Even the previously weak woman charged forward with her sword after taking the medicine. Chapter 1077. Saber light and sword shadows filled the air with murderous intent. The suppressive aura of a Foundation establishment cultivator surged out along with the battle, forming a low pressure in the air. The fierce sword chi and the sharp saber chi collided and refracted, creating banging sounds. The surrounding trees were cut down by the sword chi, and liquid dripped onto the ground. As their battle became more and more intense, the smell of blood also permeated the air. Whoosh! Bang bang! A loose cultivator in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm swung his sword fiercely. The blade that was infused with a strong aura of spiritual power surged with a visible airflow. The biting cold sword chi attacked with a whoosh, slashing towards Song Ming at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Feeling the sense of danger and killing intent, Song Ming looked in that direction. When he saw it, his heart skipped a beat. Unable to block it in time, he could only quickly leap to the side to avoid it. However, the opponent's speed was extremely fast. Even though he avoided the fatal blow, he was still sent flying by the powerful airflow, falling several meters away. Hiss! He sucked in a breath of air and rolled on the ground. The pain on his body made him look down. He saw that his body had been slashed by the sword chi with countless deep and shallow wounds. Blood seeped out from the wounds, and he was in so much pain that he opened his mouth and gritted his teeth as he stared at the loose cultivator who was looking at him with contempt. Bah! He spat out the blood in his mouth, wiped the corner of his mouth, and walked forward again with his sword. Fortunately, I dodged quickly. Otherwise, I would have been cut in half. Holding the sword, his pace went from slow to fast. One of his hands moved slightly, as if there was something extra on his arm. The killing intent on his body was aroused. You think I'm easy to bully, right? After I kill you, you'll know that I'm not easy to bully. Brat! You're courting death. Another cultivator brandished his sword and stepped forward. However, before he could get close to Song Ming, he saw him raise his left hand. With a whoosh, a cold light suddenly shot out. It was a sleeve arrow that directly shot out, piercing the cultivator's heart and piercing the other person behind him. Yes! The cultivator and the person behind him didn't expect to be hit by the arrow. Their bodies stiffened and they fell back. At this moment, the arrow that shot into the chest of the cultivator flew back and automatically stuck itself to Song Ming's sleeve arrow. Fuck! Why didn't you use this treasure earlier? Do you have to wait until someone kills you before you use it? Ning Lang turned around and glared at them. He wasn't as strong as the others, but he relied on the many treasures on him to kill them while dodging. Because of this, he was the one who suffered the least injuries. Bang! Luo Fei was sent flying by another loose cultivator when he was attacking one of them. He staggered back a few steps and after stabilizing himself, he rubbed his stomach and glared angrily. He cursed angrily in his heart, "You want to bully us with your numbers? Good. Then don't blame me for playing dirty." He quickly retreated to Ning Lang's side, shook out a strange mask from the space and handed it to him. Put it on. Ning Lang took a look at it and asked, "What can this do?" To prevent people from hitting my face. Just put it on. Don't ask so much nonsense. Anyway, it won't hurt you, Luo Fei said angrily. He took out a few more masks and threw them to Song Ming and Duan Yi. In the end, he put one on himself and took out something from the space. Chapter 1078. What was this Luo Fei trying to do? Just as she was thinking, she heard him shout, "I'm going to play dirty." As soon as he finished speaking, he threw something the size of a fist into the surroundings. When that thing landed on the ground, it dispersed with a bang, and a reddish-yellow smoke filled the air. Even from where she was, she felt that it was suffocating and dazzling. Immediately, she leaped up and changed direction, coming to a place with the wind. Cough, cough, cough. What the hell is that? Hiss, I can't open my eyes. Damn it. Look carefully before you cut. Don't cut your own people. Okay. For a moment, in the dispersed smoke, those itinerant cultivators could not open their eyes. Their throats itched as they coughed, unable to fight. Even if they wanted to open their eyes to take a look, once they opened their eyes, they felt a dazzling sensation, and even tears flowed down uncontrollably. Damn stinky brat. He actually dares to play dirty in broad daylight. Some itinerant cultivators cursed angrily as they retreated. In a situation where they could not open their eyes and even breathing was a problem, it was really not suitable to fight. Especially when they could not see, but they could hear muffled groans and the smell of blood in the air. It was very likely that their people were killed. This battle was originally bullying with numbers, so the two golden core cultivators did not make a move. In their opinion, it would be very easy for more than 20 Foundation establishment cultivators to take down those few youths. Who would have thought that they would see their people fall one by one, and even though those youths also suffered many injuries, none of them were fatal. Seeing this scene, the two men's faces turned gloomy. They had been standing far away and didn't go forward. At this time, the smoke couldn't hurt them. Seeing their people fall one by one, the two men's cold eyes flashed and stared at the masked people in the fog. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sound of the hidden weapons was covered by the sword and saber. If one did not listen carefully, they would not have noticed it at all. When Fingzhou, who was sitting on the tree branch, saw the two golden core cultivators shoot out two hidden weapons, she raised her eyebrows slightly and also shot out the silver needles in her hand. Clang! Clang! The silver needles struck down the two concealed weapons, producing two soft clanging sounds. When the two Jindan cultivators saw that their hidden weapons had been shot down, their gloomy gazes also landed on the red figure sitting on the tree branch. In the next moment, one of them took a deep breath and grabbed at the air with his claw, forming a claw shape. With a fierce air current, he charged directly at Fingzhou. Fingzhou did not move from her seat. Her fingers were twirling as she played with the silver needles between her fingers. Traces of cold light refracted from the needles. However, before she could make a move, she heard a stern shout. "Your opponent is me." Duanyi raised his chi and sword into the air. The sharp sword in his hand shot out a sharp sword light towards the gold core stage cultivator. Humph! You overestimate yourself. The gold core cultivator coldly snorted. The claw that was heading towards Fingzhou turned and attacked Duanyi. The air current in the claw was as sharp as a knife. He actually blocked Duanyi's sword with his bare hand, and his other hand suddenly grabbed towards his throat. Killing intent instantly spread out, and the aura of death enveloped Duanyi. The terrifying pressure of a gold core cultivator directly enveloped him. Under this pressure, Duanyi's body became sluggish and his speed slowed down. "I'll send you to hell." Chapter 1079. Duanyi didn't resist at all and was sucked forward as if he was being controlled. When he saw that the man's claw-like hand was about to grab his throat, his eyes flashed and he let out a low shout in the next moment. Flywheel chop. The 8-star flywheel magic tool appeared in his hand with a whoosh. Following his command, the 8-star flywheel flew out from his hand and chopped towards the golden core cultivator in front of him. The golden core cultivator didn't expect that he would be able to counterattack in such a situation. When he saw the flying wheel that was as sharp as a blade flying towards him, his expression changed and he quickly withdrew his hand and retreated. However, the 8-star flywheel was a magic tool. Following Duan Ye's will, it chased after him and chopped out a sharp blade chi at lightning speed. Hiss! As the golden core cultivator retreated, his robes were torn apart by the burst of chi and hung on his body like an open crotch. Just as he was retreating in a sorry state, the flywheel chopped out another chi and cut a deep wound on his body. Ah! At the same time, the golden core cultivator was forced to take out his sword to block. However, how could his sword compare to Duan Ye's magic tool? With a clang and a crack, the golden core cultivator's sword collided with the 8-star flywheel. When the two weapons collided, the sword broke and the 8-star flywheel directly cut into the golden core cultivator's forehead. It was so fast that the golden core cultivator behind him didn't have time to save him. Hiss! How is this possible? The gold core cultivator sucked in a cold breath in horror. He watched as the gold core loose cultivator was killed by Duan Ye. He watched as the 8-star flywheel cut into the gold core loose cultivator's forehead. The flywheel was stuck in his flesh, and only a trace of blood dripped out from the bottom of the flywheel. As for the golden core loose cultivator, perhaps he didn't expect to die at the hands of a Foundation establishment cultivator. Even in death, his eyes were wide open and filled with fear and unwillingness to return. Duan Yi shouted and the flywheel stuck in the golden core cultivator's forehead returned to his hand with a whoosh. The golden core loose cultivator also fell down and stopped breathing. On the tree, Fengjiu revealed a satisfied expression and secretly nodded when she saw this scene. Although Duan Yi had a baby face, his strength could be said to be the strongest among the four of them. His attacks were decisive and swift, clean and unexpected. She wasn't surprised that he could kill the golden core cultivator. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment and then shifted to the people in front of them. She saw that it was a chaotic battle and the loose cultivators in the smoke were falling one by one. Song Ming and the others were not much better off. They were all covered in wounds of various sizes. Even Ning Lang's arm had been slashed several times by sword chi in the chaotic battle. Blood seeped out, causing him to curse furiously. He was so angry that he directly charged forward and knocked one of the independent cultivators away. "I'll fight it out with you." With a furious roar, his strength was stimulated. When he knocked the first loose cultivator into one or two others, he fiercely clenched his hands into fists and clenched his teeth as he swung his fists with all his might. Chapter 1080. Bang! A heavy sound was heard. He punched out with both fists, and there was a spiritual aura visible to the naked eye. This spiritual aura hit the back when he punched out, from the first person to the last person. Ah! The first rogue cultivator merely bent his waist and groaned, but the second and third rogue cultivators screamed with pale faces. Especially the last rogue cultivator, he spat out a mouthful of blood from his throat. His entire body flew out and crashed heavily into a tree. Bang! Bang bang! A few sounds of people falling to the ground were heard one after another. Apart from the first two who could barely stand up, the last person couldn't even scream after vomiting blood. It was as if he couldn't catch his breath. His internal organs were in great pain, and he curled up on the ground until he couldn't bear the heart-wrenching pain and fainted. Hiss! Little fatty, you can do it. Luo Fei's eyes lit up, and he said with some shock, "You've actually learned 99% of your family's martial art, hitting the cow through a mountain." Ning Lang exhaled softly, withdrew his hand, and turned to glare at Luo Fei. "I told you not to call me little fatty. I'm now in the growth stage, and I'll lose weight in the future." "Okay. Continue." Take advantage of their confusion and take their lives. Song Ming shouted, and his figure rushed out again. The sleeve arrow in his hand was also shot out with the help of the sword in his right hand. On the other side of the tree, Fengzhou, who saw this scene, exhaled softly. Although these 4 people were in their teens, each of them had their own life-saving skills. She was very satisfied to see their fighting strength today. The remaining Golden Core rogue cultivator saw that the situation was not good, and he already had the intention to escape. Seeing how ruthless these youths were, and how they had all kinds of combat skills and magic tools, he already knew that it was impossible to kill them and take their things. Especially when there were only a few of them left, they couldn't stay any longer. Therefore, he retreated step by step, wanting to escape. However, the moment he turned around to escape, he heard a low roar, followed by a white shadow. A small pet beast actually blocked his way like a fierce tiger, and let out a low roar. Chee! The rogue cultivator sneered and stared darkly at the pet beast whose fur was standing up in an attacking posture. He smiled coldly and said, "What? Even you think I'm easy to bully? You want to block my way? Why don't you take a look at yourself first?" As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his sleeves. A strong surge of spiritual power gushed out, trying to sweep away the little white pet on the ground. However, as soon as he moved, the little pet jumped up gently, showing its sharp claws and teeth, and pounced on him. A white light flashed in front of his eyes, and before he could see it clearly, he felt a burning pain on his face. "Ah!" he cried out in alarm. His heart trembled as he quickly retreated. He raised his hand and carefully touched it. When he saw the blood on his hand, he was shocked. "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."